Hi everyone, welcome to the Minecraft fight animation tutorial. In this video I'm going to show you how I make Minecraft fight animations because I've been getting some requests to make tutorials about it, and it's not going to be the only way that you can make animations, but I'm going to show how I do it and maybe some of the tips will come in handy for you. So let's begin. But before we jump into it, I want to apologize to my subscribers because I haven't been active recently. That's because I'm working on the second channel as well, and for this channel I'm gonna make multiple animations and then release them according to the schedule, so it's not gonna be messed up. But while I'm doing that, I want to stay active here, so I'm gonna make tutorials like this, for example, and if you have any ideas for tutorials, then be sure to leave them in the comments. And let's begin. Alright, the first thing you want to do is delete all the stuff because we're not gonna need it. And also be sure to save the file so that you don't lose any progress as you go on. So file, save as. And I already chose the folder which is called tutorials, and you can choose any folder you want. So I went here, tutorials, and let's name it tutorial fight, for example. Alright. And the shortcut for saving the file is Ctrl S, so it's gonna save it as you go on. Also, I'm gonna turn on the screencast keys so that you see what I'm pressing. Alright, so on the side you're gonna see everything that I press. So to make a fight animation, I usually use a blank scene, empty scene, and I'd like to import two characters. So let's import the character, for example, file, append. And then you're gonna find your folder where you have all the Minecraft animation rigs. I have it over here. And I use the BPS rig version 3. The link will be in the description. So I'm gonna use the default one without armor and all that stuff. So go to that collection and import it. Alright, let's go to material view. And there's Steve. So also what I'd like to do is when I press on the character, like with the right click, I'd like to zoom in so that it's going to be more comfortable to work. So Blender has the key which is numpad period on default, and when you press it's going to zoom in and you're going to rotate more comfortably around the character, but I set it to F, so if I press F, for example, it's going to zoom in the character and it's going to rotate more like comfortably around this area. So I'm going to import that on the character as well. Just do the same thing, file, append, and let's make him stand over here. Let's select this magnet. Alright, and maybe change the skin on this guy so that it's not going to be the same. If you don't know how to change the skin, you select this mesh, go to the materials tab right here, press on X, go open and find any skin you have in a folder. I'm just gonna select my skin, for example. Alright, and maybe I'll change the eyes as well, more brownish. Yeah, I like that. Right, I'm also gonna give both of these characters their weapons. For the sake of this tutorial, let's give them iron swords. You can use any rig you want. I'd like to use the McPrep item spawner. So I press N, bring out McPrep, go down in the item spawner. Over here, you're gonna click reload assets. Then you can press this arrow and then type iron sword or any item you want. You can use diamond sword, you can use custom textures, whatever you want. So let's place iron sword over here. And what I like to do first is click on 7, go in the top view, and as you can see the rotating arrows are over here. So the grid is gonna be here by default, and it's going to rotate right over here, which is not really comfortable because you want the sword to rotate around the end of the handle, which is here. So you can fix that by pressing tab to go in the edit mode, press A to select all the faces, and then you can move sword up like this. Just be sure to select this magnet because it's going to move like this. And if you don't select the magnet, it's gonna move freely and it's not gonna sit there the way it should. So press the magnet and maybe let's insert this yellow dot right over here. So this is the yellow dot, so let's insert it right over here, for example, or maybe here as well. Now if you press tab, you can see that's the sword is gonna rotate towards the end of the handle, which is more comfortable. So let's give Steve his own sword. And you can rotate it by pressing R, and this is what it does. But if you press R twice, it's gonna rotate more freely. If you want even more variants of rotating, you can press R, Y, it's gonna rotate this way. RX is gonna move forward, and RZ is gonna rotate sideways like this. So let's press RX like this, and then let's place another sword and do the same thing we did before. Press 7, go in the top view, tab to go in the edit mode, select everything, and then do this. Move this yellow line over here. Now let's give my character the sword as well. Alright, and we can parent the sword to their arms, and then we can start animating. So we can imagine that this is the middle of the battlefield. You can choose any scenario you want. I want this to be a middle of the fight, for example. So I'm going to give both of them. First of all, I'm going to parent the swords. So when they move their arms, the sword is going to be sticking to their arms. And second of all, I'm going to give them the starting pose or starting position. So let's select this sword. The way I'm going to pose mode, if you don't know, I select the object and pressing Ctrl Tab, which is the shortcut for pose mode, or you can change it from here as well. This object, edit, and pose mode right here, or Ctrl Tab. And pose mode allows you to choose different bones, like head, for example, hands, body, torso and pelvis, and legs as well. But the thing is, with Blender 3, I believe it's the case for Blender 3 only, because in the previous versions you could choose characters in pose mode and also the items as well, but here you can't choose. Maybe there's a setting for it, I'm not sure. Be sure to tell me in the comments if there is a setting to change it. But the way you want to select the items is first you're going to go out of the pose mode, so Ctrl Tab, or as you can see from screencast keys. Select the sword and place it where you want. I want it right here, for example. And then go into the object, select the object, go into the pose mode, select the arm, this one. You want to parent the sword to the arm, not to the hand, the arm. Then press Ctrl Tab as well, and then Blender is gonna remember which bone you have selected in the pose mode. So select the sword, then select this arm bone, and then press Ctrl P, and then bone. You can choose bone relative as well. I'm not sure what the difference is, but I usually choose bone right here. And then when you press the object, go into the pose mode, and if you lift his arm, there, the sword is moving with the arm as well, so it's parented. Now let's do the same thing over here as well. Go to the pose mode, select the arm bone, go out of the pose mode, in the object mode, select the sword, select the arm bone over here, Ctrl P, boom. And there we go, this is going to be parented as well. And now what I like to do is, first I have the auto keyframing turned on. You can turn it on as well. And you can use location rotation or location rotation and scale, or only rotation. There are many settings over here. I use location and rotation. And let's stand them in front of each other. So press T if you want the arrows. For me it's more comfortable. So let's make them stand in front of each other and give them like a starting pose, so they're already in the middle of the fight, and for example a camera cuts towards them and they continue fighting. So what I like to do is give them a starting pose and just like I Right, so I'd like to stand them in front of each other, for example, give them a starting pose. Also, what I recommend is watching movies, TV shows, cartoons, anime that has a lot of action fight scenes. Maybe you're gonna learn some things from that, to get some ideas. Also, video games, obviously. There are many ways you can improve fight animations. First of all is, like I said, watching all that stuff to get the ideas, and also second is by making many animations yourself. You should make many fight animations, experiment with them, make different poses, different keyframes and all that stuff, and you're gonna improve as you go on. So in this case, I'm giving both like a starting position, like this is gonna be attacker, for example, and my character is gonna dodge some moves. I don't know, I'm just coming up with it right now because I didn't plan this. And let's give both of them like decent starting positions. So I'm moving their arms, legs, body, torso, pelvis, all that stuff. And I'm gonna explain the basics of how I do fight animations. So first, we're gonna work on Steve. Like Steve is gonna swing, my character is gonna dodge, and then they're gonna clash the swords, for example. And first thing I want to do is make the movement for Steve, and then make the movement for my character. So it's gonna be a bit hard to make the movement for Steve because my character is getting in the way. So what you can do is select the second character, select this magnet, and move it down so that it doesn't get in the way, and then we can move it up later. Alright, so let's make Steve swing his sword at my character. So what we want to do, obviously, is first set the keyframe for all the keyframes, like set the starting keyframe. So press A to select the ribbon, and then press I, like so. Because when you go forward in the frames, there has to be a keyframe at the start so that it doesn't change the position weirdly later on. You're gonna understand what I'm talking about as we go on. So let's go forward like 12 or 14 frames, for example. Steve is gonna lift his right hand. So let's make this like basic lifting right hand. But obviously it's not gonna be enough. He needs to move his entire body so that the movement can look more natural and realistic. So let's rotate his body as well. Let's make the head stay in the place, focused on the target. This hand is gonna be up more naturally, for example. You can rotate this as well, rotate this. You can also animate the sword along the way. You don't have to animate all the time, but in this case it was like stuck in his head like this. So let's lift it up a bit, and maybe you can move the leg as well a little bit. And as you can see, we go from 0 to 14 and Steve lifts his hand like this. And this looks decent, but it's not great and it can be better. So my pro tip is go in between the starting and ending frame of this movement. So start frame is 0, end frame is 14, middle is gonna be 7 right here. And what I like to do is give the character a movement in between the starting and end frames to make it look more natural. That's one of the most important parts in my opinion. So for example, in the middle of this movement, he might look better if he bends his elbow like this, for example, because it's gonna look more realistic, like so. You can see the difference already. So if I take these two frames and delete them, and I can compare them. So this is the first one, this is how he lifts his hand, and this is when we added 2 keyframes like so. As you can see, it's already a bit different, and you can experiment, clean it up a little bit, maybe like so. I don't know. Yeah, that looks decent. Maybe make the final movement a bit matching to the middle one, so like this. Yes. You can see in one of my animations the character Steve actually lifts his hand and then swings it, and it looks like more realistic because I added the movements in between them. So that's for the arm, but obviously other body parts need to be moving as well. Like you need to move many body parts to make the animations look more realistic. So he needs to, like, for example, bend forward a little bit. Like I pressed R, X to move it forward, RX again. And then head always stays in the place because he's focusing on the target. And like so, yeah. And this arm can also stay down a little bit, maybe like so. Oh no, actually going to the I made it in this 8th frame, which is not a big deal, but if you want to move the frames, you should select it by pressing left click. If you have left click enabled, some people have right click enabled, it's up to you. You can customize it in the user set, in the preferences. So let's press this keyframe and press G to move. Then it moved on the 7th frame. Alright, so that already looks better, as you can see, but still, let's make him rotate on the right side at first, like so, and then he rotates on the left side on the final movement, and maybe he bends sideways like this a little bit, leaves his head forward, and let's see. Now I don't like where the head is moving, so it's gonna stay in the place. And maybe you can move the body down as well. Yeah, that doesn't look bad. Move it forwards. Now backwards, like so. Because he's gonna move backwards and then take a step forward later on. But first, that's the first movement, as you can see. And if you don't like it, you can always change it. Like, for example, I don't like the way he moves his hand. It's too, I think it's a bit too much down. Yeah, maybe like this. That looks decent in my opinion. Then you can always make it look better. You can even add movements in between, like these frames and these frames, for example. But let's just keep it basic. So he lifts his hand. And then he's gonna swing. So before he swings, be sure to select the necessary body parts you want to move. So body, head, both of hands, and both legs. And select and then press I to set the keyframes, because if you don't set the keyframes, then it's gonna mess up later on in the animation. And then go forward another 14 frames, 12 to 14 frames. So let's go to 28. Also, another useful tip is you can go to timeline, type plus whichever frame you want, for example, plus 14 we want in this case. And then it jumps to plus 14 frames, which is 28 in this case. Now, what he's gonna do is he's gonna move his body and leg forward, just take a step forward. So first I want to select this body, press Alt R to select the starting position, then go forward a bit below like this, a bit down, move his left leg, and then as you can see he takes a step forward. There we go. But obviously that doesn't look realistic. We need to move other body parts as well and make the movements in between them. So first let's work on the body. He swings his sword like as he takes a step forward, which means his body is gonna be right over here. Maybe move this leg a bit forward as well. Make his body move over here. Head always stays on the target. And then because he swung his sword, it's gonna be right over here. You can move this as well, but not too much. Right over here, for example, and this hand is gonna be backwards because of the momentum. You can also animate the sword. Keyframe is already set here, so it's not gonna be an issue. And maybe move it like this. So he lifts his sword, lifts his hand, and then he swings it. Obviously that looks super basic, so we want to go in between like we did before. So let's go between the frames, which would be 21. And this is gonna be the movement in between. So what I like to do is, because he takes his step forward, his body is gonna move up a little bit, and also his leg is gonna move up, the leg which he's stepping forward with. So in this case it's left leg, so he's gonna lift it up like so, and then it's gonna look more realistic, as you can see. There we go. And maybe move him down here as well a little bit. Yeah, that looks decent. Alright, let's make other body parts move here as well. So maybe this is how he swings midway. He's not all the way to the left side already. Head always stays forward. This hand can go here. And obviously his right hand is not moving realistically. If you want to swing, you want to swing from above. So what you can do is go in the middle, take this, maybe move it like so. Take the sword as well. As you can see, I'm pressing Ctrl Tab to go out of the pose mode to select the sword. Move it like this, for example, and let's see how it looks. Yep, that already looks way better. So yeah, this is just like basics on how I do it. We can make him move even more on the right side. Let's see. Yep, that looks decent. There we go. But as you can see, he swings the sword and then just freezes in place. So you're gonna move his body parts even more, just a few frames after that, so that he's not gonna be static like this. So if you don't like it, you can always change it. Like for example, I don't like this. I think it needs to move even more. Yeah, so he swings it like this. And let's go forward like, and let's go 10 frames. You can always change it if you want later. It's easy. So the way what I'm gonna do is basically continue this momentum. So he was moving his body like so, rotating it over here. Head stays in a place, but just move it a little bit, like not too much. Hand is going backwards. This hand is going here. This is going here. And then as you can see, he's not static anymore. He swings it. And then he has a little bit of momentum. Like this. Like this looks more realistic. Like so. Like if we compare it, let's delete the last frames. This is the before. And this is after we added like this small detailed movements. Like so. And you can always change it if you don't like it, obviously. Like maybe he's moving a little bit too much on the right side. Yep, yeah, that looks way better now. So that's the basics, like he lifts his hand, swings his sword, stays in the place, but still moving while staying in the place. And let's make my character dodge this attack, for example. As you can see, with just a few keyframes, we made like simple swinging animation, which doesn't look bad. It's alright. Now, let's move my character up. We can press Alt G if you want to make it in the starting position. And then they stand in front of each other like this. He swings the sword, and just because we were using like 14 keyframes each for Steve, let's use 14 keyframes for my character as well, so that they're gonna be equally matched and equally moving. So let's press A, select every bone, press I, or you can just select only the bones you want to move, like these, like we did before. Press I. Go forward 14 frames, and then when Steve swings it, he sees it, for example, and he prepares to move back. So what he's gonna do is maybe move his leg a little bit, prepare to dodge the attack, so maybe like bend forward a little bit. Head stays at the target because it's more realistic. They're looking at each other while they're fighting. Maybe move the arms like this. Yeah, just basic telegraphing. I don't know, telegraphing the movement. Maybe move his hand like this so that swords are not gonna go in between each other, because that's gonna be unrealistic. And that's right. So he sees it, and then let's select everybody part as well. We wanna move. Press I. And then go forward 14 more frames, and then he's gonna step backwards and dodge the attack. So he's gonna move like this, maybe like this a little bit, move his leg backwards, and let's press Alt R, and then let's do the Matrix dodging style move. I don't know. So he sees the move and then moves backwards before Steve can cut him down. And obviously that's super basic, so he needs to move his hands as well. Maybe move them down. Maybe move the head a little bit up, like so, and maybe move the sword as well. So that's what he does. Now I don't like the sword moving. I had to press I to set the keyframe in between, so let's select the starting frame, press Ctrl D and go here. The reason I'm doing it is because I need it to be static right over here, and then it moves a little bit when he's dodging. Alright, so obviously my character needs the movements between the frames as well. So for example, maybe his head moves like this, body moves like this. Yeah, that looks decent. You can experiment with it, do what you like. I mean, it's 7 or 8 frames, it's not gonna make much difference. So he sees the move. Maybe don't move the leg too much. And then when he's going backwards, we need movements in the middle as well. Somewhere over here, for example. And then, because he's taking a step backwards, he's also gonna move up a little bit. And then move his leg up, just like Steve did over here. Alright. And maybe make you move a bit forward, like so. And he's still like dodging the attack. So make his body bend forward. Make the head move up a little bit. And you can rotate the arms as well. Yep, that looks normal. But if you want to make the step more like bigger, you can make him crouch over here. Maybe make him crouch in the middle as well. Then, yep. Yeah, like so. That looks normal. Yep. And as you can see, my character is also static. And I need to go forward 10 frames as well and add some movements for him, just like I did for Steve. So let's select all the body parts. First of all, go to the last frame and press I to set the keyframe for every body part. Before we go on to the next action, there needs to be keyframe set for each body part. Press I, go forward like 10 frames, and then continue what he did before, continue the movement. So for example, this was going back, his body was going back, his head was going like so, and I believe his hands were moving backwards as well. Yep, there we go. There we go. It's just some subtle little detail which makes it look more realistic. There we go, he sees it and then boom, dodges it. I believe that looks pretty decent. And right over here, we can make them clash their swords or do anything we want. So my character is going to take one more step, he's going to take one more step forward, and they're going to clash their swords. So let's work on Steve first. So go back to starting frame for my character, move him down so that it's not going to get in the way. And then let's continue working with Steve. So go to the last frame, select all the body parts you want to move. Press I and then go forward 14 frames. Plus 14, and let's make him go forward. So Alt R, press the magnet, we don't need it for now. Go forward like this. No. Alright. Maybe a wider stance like this. Like so. And he's gonna be clashing swords with my character, aka Woodplank. Let's move it ourselves. Alt R. Alt R. His head is gonna be here again. His body is gonna be like so, because there's gonna be a clash of swords. His hand is gonna be over here, and then his sword is gonna be here. So let's set the keyframe over here. Go back, right over here, set it the keyframe as well, and change it like so. But as you can see, he's not doing anything, just going forward and just like meeting swords with Steve. So you want him to swing, right? So if you want to make him swing, again, we need movements in between the starting and ending frame. So go somewhere in the middle. Maybe make him go up like this. Lift his leg like so, and his body is going to be swinging again. But it's going to be a much faster swing. So that's what he does basically, like kind of like he did in the first movement, what we did in the beginning initially. So maybe this is his position over here. Like so. Obviously that doesn't look really good, so we can clean it up. And so this is start frame, end frame, and this is the keyframe in between. But you can also make the keyframes in between these two, or in between these three keyframes. So go here, for example, and make what we did before. Maybe rotate his elbow a little bit, make his body bend, head stays in the place. Maybe the hand goes like here. It stays right here as well. Already that looks better, as you can see. Way better, yep. And then when he's swinging here, his body is like this to make it seem more like, make it seem like it has force and power behind it. So, boom. Maybe it's rotating a bit too much. Yep, it's not bad. Maybe move his hand way more in the front. Like so. You can play around however you want to do it. So that's the first swing, that's the second swing. And then Steve is gonna take a step backwards, obviously, no, apologies, Woodplank is gonna take a step backwards and then clash his sword as well. So let's bring Woodplank back up, press Alt G. Maybe move him forward, and so that's the start and that's the second part. So he stops at frame 52. We can move my character or Woodplank on frame 52 as well. So first of all, select all the body parts you want to move. Go to the previous last frame, which was 38. Go back to frame 52. And then move Woodplank back a little bit. Like so. Alt R for the body, because he's gonna stand upright again. No, maybe not Alt R, but RX. Yeah, we don't want to rotate it all the way yet. move his leg backwards. And then he's gonna clash his sword as well with Steve's sword. So let's meet their swords. Gonna rotate his body as well. Rotate his hand. Head stays on the target. The hand moves. Obviously this doesn't look realistic because hand needs to be backwards like this. And they're clashing the swords. Obviously Steve looks way better because I added the movements in between the start and end frames. So let's do the same for Woodplank as well. So right over here, for example, he moves his body up, moves his leg up as well. I press RX to rotate the leg. And what he's gonna do is prepare his sword to meet Steve's sword. So maybe move his hand right over here, move his body right over here, head always stays forward, and lift his hand like this. That already looks better. Still can be more movements in between the frames. So let's go right over here. Maybe rotate the body over here, not too much though. Move his hand like so, maybe bend it. And then move his elbow on the side so that the swing looks more realistic. And maybe move the body forward. And on the sideways, head always stays forward. Yep, that looks better, but right over here, he needs to have more swinging power as well. Maybe hand is like so. Okay, I think he's rotating his body too much as well. What they need to do in the last scene is, or what he needs to do in the last scene is maybe move his body way on the right side. And we can fix the swords as well so that they're not going to be stuck between each other. So let's set a keyframe for the sword right over here. As you can see, it's stuck in his head, which is not good. So let's set another keyframe here before he moves it up. Then he moves it up. And let's make it stay right here. There we go. I didn't like the first one because he's not really reacting, so you can make him move backwards even more. Like so. Yeah. And And as you can see, when they clash their swords, they freeze again, which obviously we don't want. And we're gonna add more subtle, detailed movements, which we did before. So go for like 10 frames. You can go in more. Let's do 12 frames, for example. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna make them continue how they're moving. So this was moving right over here, and maybe a little bit over here. This one over here. Head was coming here. The right hand is gonna come down as well, like it did before in the last frame. And then same goes for Steve. He needs to move right over here, here. Head stays in the place. This one comes here, and then his head or his hand comes right over here, and maybe his arm goes up a little. And to avoid the sword clipping between each other, maybe the swords can move as well a little bit. You can make the movements in between the sword keyframes as well, so that they're not gonna be stuck between each other. And as you can see, the last one, they clash their swords and boom, the swords move, their bodies move a little bit as well. And they're not static, they're always moving. That's the main part about fight animations, is that the characters are always moving. Even when they're standing, they're still like moving their body parts a little bit. Even if someone is standing and not fighting, you can't have them completely static. You need to keyframe their body parts, like maybe their breathing and all that stuff, because it's very important in animations. So like for example, he swings and he dodges, and there we go, that's the little movement right here, only a little movement. Then they continue and clash their swords, and there's the little movement again, like so. So yeah, that makes things look more realistic. But what I think is that this is a big delay over here. So we went forward 10 frames and then made them move like so. So if you think it's too slow, you can go in the last frame of the first movement. And what you can do is select all keyframes. So by pressing A, select all body parts, apologies. Pressing A, select all keyframes right here. So the way you do that is you press Control, and anything you select after this blue line with the right click or the left click, whichever you have set preferred, is gonna select all the keyframes on this side. So I'm gonna right click, and it selected all the keyframes. So if you want to speed it up a little faster, you can make it faster by reducing the keyframes. So first it's 10 frames, now let's reduce it to like 5 frames, for example. And as you can see, he starts his second attack way sooner. And we can make the same for my character as well. Select all of his keyframes. Press Ctrl to select everything on the right side. And then go back to 5 frames to make it faster. If you want to make it slower, you're gonna go like forwards. And as you can see, it's gonna be like this for a while. Like so. And we don't want that. We want it to be faster. So go back 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. But as you can see, the problem is that the swords are now moving weirdly because we didn't move the sword keyframes as well. So do the same thing for swords. Select them and select their keyframes and go back 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Select his sword as well. Select everything on the right side. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. There we go, now it looks better. So you can continue using the same principles that I explained, making the main movements, making the movements in between, and making little subtle movements after that. But that's all the main components I use. And this is what we got in this tutorial, so I think it looks decent. You can continue, they can continue swinging, they can even do backflips if you want to do backflips. I mean, there are tutorials I'm sure out there. So yeah, this is like super basic. Let's set the end frame to like 60 so that it can loop and play around. So obviously this is not perfect, this is just like super basic fight animation. You can change it the way you want, you can make it the way you want, everybody has their animation style. I just showed you mine and maybe hopefully you learned something new. Alright, thanks for watching, hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial, hope you learned something new, and be sure to subscribe if you're new to this channel because I'm going to be uploading animations in the future, and I'm also going to be uploading some tutorials. And if you have any requests or questions, be sure to leave them in the comments down below, and see you in the next video.